Your money is not dying slowly. It already died. What you're holding now is the afterimage, the warmth still leaving the body. You go to work, you earn, you save, you check your account balance, and the number stays the same. Maybe it even grows, and so you believe you're building something. But here's what no one told you. The number was never the wealth. The number is a measurement, and the unit of measurement has been quietly shrinking every year, every decade, every century this story has played out. It ends the same way, not with a single dramatic moment everyone sees. It ends with people waking up one morning and realizing the thing they trusted, the thing they traded their hours, their labor, their lives for, buys nothing. They didn't lose their money. Their money lost its meaning. This has happened before. In Rome, in Germany, in dozens of empires whose names you've forgotten, precisely because this is how they ended. Silently, slowly, then all at once. You're about to learn what they learned too late. In the year 200 AD, a Roman soldier received his wages in silver coins called denarii. He could feel the weight in his hand. He could test the metal with his teeth. The coin had been the backbone of Roman commerce for 3 centuries, trusted from Britannia to Babylon. 1 denarius bought a day's labor. 10 bought a fine sword. 50 could feed a family for a month. The soldier didn't know he was living in the golden hour before sunset. Rome was bleeding. The empire stretched across 3 continents, and it was expensive to hold. Legions needed paying, barbarians needed bribing, grain needed subsidizing, and the silver mines of Spain were running dry. So the emperors faced a choice every government eventually faces: admit the empire could no longer afford itself, or find a way to create money that didn't exist. They chose the second option. It started quietly. Emperor after emperor began clipping the coins, shaving the edges, melting them down and mixing the silver with copper, bronze, whatever was cheap. The coin still looked the same. It still bore the emperor's face. It still felt official. But the silver content began its long slide downward. Under Nero, the denarius was 94% silver. Under Marcus Aurelius, 75%. Under Caracalla, 50%. By the reign of Gallienus, the coins contained less than 5% silver. They were copper discs with a silver wash so thin it wore off in your pocket. But here's what made this slow-motion theft so effective. For a while it worked. The emperors could pay their soldiers, fund their wars, and maintain the illusion of prosperity. Prices rose, but gradually. People blamed merchants, they blamed weather, they blamed foreigners. The connection between the debased currency and their shrinking purchasing power was invisible to anyone who wasn't looking. And almost no one was looking. By the time Diocletian took the throne in 284 AD, the currency had become a joke. Soldiers demanded payment in grain, in land, in anything but coins. Trade collapsed into barter. The greatest economy the ancient world had ever seen fragmented into 1,000 local systems of trust, because the universal system of trust had been hollowed out from the inside. Rome didn't fall because of barbarians. Rome fell because Romans stopped believing in Rome, and nothing taught them disbelief faster than watching their life savings evaporate in their hands. Think of currency as an ice cube. When you earn $1, you're given a small cube of frozen value. You put it in your freezer, your savings account, your retirement fund, and you expect it to be there when you need it. That's the promise. That's the entire premise of saving for the future. But what if someone slowly, imperceptibly raised the temperature in your freezer? Not enough to notice. Not enough to alarm you, just 2 degrees, then 3, then 5. You open the door and your ice cube is still there. It still looks like an ice cube, but it's smaller than it was last year, and the year before, and the year before that. This is what currency debasement does. It doesn't steal your ice cube. It melts it while you sleep. The Romans did it with metallurgy. They diluted the silver and called it the same coin. Central banks today do it with keystrokes. They create new currency units, trillions of them, and inject them into the financial system through a process they call quantitative easing. The name is intentionally dull. It sounds technical, bureaucratic, almost boring. That's the point. No one riots over monetary policy. No one marches in the streets because the M2 money supply expanded. But the effect is identical to Rome. More units chasing the same goods means each unit commands less. Your ice cube melts. Your labor buys less house, less food, less future. And because the debasement happens invisibly, through bond purchases, through overnight lending facilities, through mechanisms most people will never read about, the cause remains hidden. You feel the effect, you never see the hand. This is the first layer, dilution. More currency is created, and each existing unit shrinks in meaning. The second layer is distribution. When Rome minted debased coins, the emperor received them first. He paid his soldiers, his bureaucrats, his allies, and those coins spent at full value before prices adjusted. By the time the coins reached farmers and labourers, the market had already absorbed the inflation. The first spenders won, the last spenders lost. When the Federal Reserve creates new dollars, they enter the economy through banks, through asset purchases, through institutions with direct access. Those institutions buy stocks, real estate, bonds, and the prices of those assets rise before wages adjust. If you own assets, you surf the wave of new money. If you work for wages, the wave crashes on you. The mechanism rewards those closest to the spigot. The third layer is perception. Romans didn't blame the emperor for their shrinking wealth. They blamed the merchant who raised prices. Americans don't blame monetary policy. They blame corporations, landlords, supply chains. The true cause is obscured because it's abstract. You can see a greedy merchant. You cannot see an expanded balance sheet. And so, the melting continues. Your ice cube shrinks year after year, and you're told inflation is transitory. You're told 2% annual theft is not only normal but necessary. You're told to keep your savings in the very unit being debased, and to trust the institutions doing the debasing to protect your interests. The Romans were told the same thing. They believed it until they couldn't buy bread. In 1971, Richard Nixon severed the last thread connecting the dollar to gold. It was supposed to be temporary. A pause, an emergency measure. It's been 53 years. Since that day, the dollar has lost over 87% of its purchasing power, not because of some catastrophe, not because of war or famine or natural disaster, simply because the people who control the money supply found it easier to create new dollars than to make hard choices. In the year 2000, the total assets on the Federal Reserve's balance sheet were roughly $700 billion. By 2024, that number had grown to nearly $8 trillion. In a single generation, the central bank created more dollars than had existed in all of prior American history. They did it to save the banks in 2008. They did it to cushion the pandemic in 2020. They'll do it again the next time something breaks, because the tool exists, and it's politically painless in the short term. The consequences come later, and they come quietly, and they fall heaviest on people who did everything they were told, worked hard, saved diligently, trusted the system. You've already felt this, even if you couldn't name it. You felt it when your parents bought a house on a single income and you can't afford one on two. You felt it when groceries doubled in price and your salary adjusted by single digits. You felt it when you saved money and watched it buy less every year, and when you finally asked, why is this happening? The answer you received was a shrug dressed up in economic jargon. The ice cube is melting faster now, the temperature in the freezer is rising, and the same pattern that destroyed Roman commerce and annihilated the German middle class is playing out in slow motion, right in front of you, hidden in plain sight. In Weimar Germany, it took wheelbarrows of cash to buy bread, but it didn't start that way. It started with small expansions of the money supply to pay war debts. It started with temporary measures that became permanent. It started with trust in institutions that had every incentive to keep printing and no incentive to stop. By the time people realized what was happening, a lifetime of savings wouldn't buy a postage stamp. History does not repeat, but it echoes, and the echo's getting louder. So what survives? When the ice melts, what remains? This is the question that separates those who merely lose money from those who lose everything. Because the Romans, who understood what was happening, who saw the debasement for what it was, didn't sit paralyzed. They converted their coins into land, into olive groves, into tools and skills and relationships that held value independent of the emperor's promises. They realized something that every monetary collapse eventually teaches. Currency is a claim on wealth, but it is not wealth itself. Wealth is productive capacity. It's the farm that grows food, whether the currency is silver or paper or digits on a screen. It's the skill that remains valuable when systems fail. It's the network of trust that lets people trade and cooperate even when official channels collapse. It's the knowledge that can't be debased because it lives in your mind, not in an account. The melting ice cube is not a crisis to fear. It's a signal to understand. It's telling you that the measuring stick is broken, that the unit of account is a political tool, not a natural law, that the people in charge of the freezer have every reason to keep raising the temperature and very little reason to tell you the truth about it. Real wealth has always been the same, across every empire and every collapse, the ability to produce, to adapt, and to remain useful when the illusions fall away. Your money will die. It's already dying. Every currency in history has died, and the one in your pocket will be no exception. The only question is whether you understand this in time to trade your melting ice for something solid, something that doesn't depend on a promise that's already being broken. The freezer door is open. The temperature is rising. And now, at least, you know. If this made you see money differently, consider subscribing. There's more history here, and more warning for those willing to look.